Welcome back to the Mail Right Show. We are so incredibly happy, grateful, and excited to be back. It is January 6th, 2022, and today's episode is number 321. And I separated that out a little bit because if you guys didn't notice, that's the same as our countdown, 3, 2, 1. So today is absolutely one of my favorite shows of the entire year. We, John and I, are going to talk about, each of us are going to list off what we felt were our 10 best shows or best guests. Actually, in my case, it's the 10 best guests, because many of the guests that I like came on the show a number of times throughout 2021. So with no further ado, John, as always, was way more organized than me, and he had his list together. Actually, you know what? Before I forget, John, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to somebody that might be joining us for the first time?
That's great. Thanks for that, Robert. So I'm the joint founder of Mail Right. We're a platform that helps you be the champion of your local area. We give you a website built on WordPress and a number of marketing tools that keep you tight with your local lead tribe. Back over to you.
All right. So as I was about ready to say, as always, John is more organized than me. And he has got his list over to me. I did not do the same for him. He's going to find out in real time who my favorite shows were and why. But since he was organized, obviously that gives him the right of whatever you want to do. You can go first or second, John. It's your...
I'll go second. I'll give you the lead, Robert.
All right. So, ladies and gents, my list goes back all the way to the beginning of the year, and I'm going to start off with the one that I think is going to surprise everybody, including John, just to get it right out there early on. Episode number 219. And here's the funny part, guys. John won't remember this guy. Stephen Ross.
Was he not the guy that knocked on 1,000 doors and had the book?
Holy shit. You did that off of memory? I wouldn't have gotten that right. Yes, that was the guy. I just liked, he had kind of a quirky personality on the show, and he was a good storyteller. He was also identified early on in the show that he was an introvert, which I identify as being an ambivert. So we kind of related to each other for a little bit about being introverts yet being in sales, like things like knocking on doors and talking to people and stuff like that. I thought it was a cool show.
Yeah, and I think it kind of should, to beat our own drum, never, beloved listeners. It was a little bit, we just don't have every guest is a kind of either real estate agent or a marketing expert. We attempt to mix it up a little bit. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, dramatically. But in this case, it did work, I think, because he's not really into digital marketing. He built his business utilizing what would be classified as kind of old school, face-to-face guerrilla marketing, really, didn't he?
Which is how I built a lot of my businesses. And honestly, there's always space, John. It really doesn't matter what we're doing, what kind of business that we're talking about. I don't really care what anybody says or tells me. Digital is super cool. It's where I make my living. It's the only place that I want to market. However, anybody with a little bit of drive and ambition can still get out there, knock on doors, pick up the phone, make enough calls. You will be successful. And Stephen reminded me of that. That's why I like the episode so much, is that he reminded me that the basics still work.
Yeah, so to continue that, I'm going to go with one of, I'm not going to go in the, I had an order from 1 to 5, but it wasn't that. I thought number 1 was better than number 5, so I'm going to do them slightly out of order. But on a similar kind of subject is Tim Stout. I think I'm pronouncing his surname correctly. He was the broker, real estate agent that came from, I think, some form of martial art. He wasn't your seen as the typical real estate agent, and he just built through will of power he's just built, and I got the total impression that he's a totally honest, straightforward guy. Really built up his own book of business very rapidly, and then really understood the fundamentals of using digital marketing, and has built up a brokerage, a very successful one. And that was show 275. And he just impressed me with one word. When I think of him, one word comes: determination.
I loved Tim Stout. He's on my list. If I had to say, I would even put him in my top 5. What really impressed me about Tim was, I don't know if you remember this, but during the episode, we were talking about, somehow it came up, like he just kept mentioning, I've got a coach for this, I've got a coach for that. And he's talking about all this education that he's doing in terms of his own real estate business. Like, I've talked to this person, I've talked to that person. Every time it seemed like we mentioned somebody, he's like, yeah, I've talked to those people. And so I was like, well, how many coaches do you have? And he's like, well, 6. And I was just like, I just felt like it was such a good representation of a success mindset. Like, he was so incredibly, like,
focused.
Focused, and like, hey, I'm going to go learn what I need to learn from the person I need to learn it from. But that's the attitude that he kind of got. And then I'm just going to go out and hustle. Of all the guests that we did, I mean, we have a lot of people that have so much polish that came on the show. Pretty much every single other person on my list had a lot of polish. Tim was just kind of like pure determination and grit in my eyes. He wasn't trying to put on, like, I definitely have this, oh, I'm going to educate myself and I have like an educated manner. Tim had a determined manner, and it's different. It's different. And I love that about him. I think anybody that listened to that episode, number 275, could pick up something that they need to hear.
Mm.
You took it away. Do you want me to go, or do you want to go?
There you go.
I'm sure many of ours are the same.
Yeah, I hope so.
So somebody that we interviewed 3 separate times throughout the course of the year, who was a personal favorite of mine in 2021, because I got to talk operations. I got to do marketing analysis conversations with him over and over and over again. And I could do another 5 or 10 in 2022, because he was looking at and thinking of marketing providers the same way that I do. He was analyzing results. He was looking at spend. He was looking at back end core issues that we never talk about as it relates to vendors, such as, can we import or export our information easily? And these are questions that are overlooked, and they shouldn't be, because in some cases, they cost real estate agents and brokers tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars if the problem is big enough. Some of these issues can be so significant that they can take a seemingly profitable marketing effort and take most of the profit and dump them straight down the hole of some kind of unrealized problem that you didn't know that you're going to have. Chris Aniszewski is probably one of the, he is one of those guys, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls and listeners. He's one of those people that's wildly underrated. We don't have enough people talking about real estate from the operations perspective in terms of marketing. We've got guys like Ricky Carruth and me and Jimmy Burgess and Tom Ferry. And yes, we're all great, and you should listen to every single one of us. You should listen to my partner as well. But you know what? We are all focused on the higher level, the top tier. You need somebody focused on the nuts and bolts as part of your listening routine. Somebody who's literally going to say, oh, KV Core doesn't do this, this, and this. And I didn't like him because of this, this, and this reason. And it may be boring, but you all really need to understand your tools at depth. because that knowledge, which is what Chris brought to the table because he was a operations guy for a major real estate team. That level of knowledge is what will stand. And if you don't have it, fine. Listen to somebody else that does, or hire somebody else that does. Anyway, I guess I'm on one. I like Chris. I like him a lot.
Yeah, I thought you might choose him. Right, one that's going to maybe surprise you, but is Seth Price. Well known in the industry, agreed to come on the show. Really open, very intelligent. Answered a couple hard questions that I put to him graciously, and didn't kind of deflect them, just dealt with them. Would love him back on the show this year. We'll outreach to him, see if he's up for it. So I thought that was a great interview. What do you think, Robert?
Probably my number one for the year. Not only was he an amazing guest, he's just an amazing human. And I have to admit, he opened my mind in terms of what may or may not be happening over at Playster. I've started to say them, talk about them again, think about them again, wonder what they're doing again. He opened up the doors of curiosity inside my mind. And I didn't think that would be possible with what kind of service Playster is, not in the sense of following them intently and really paying attention to what they're going to be doing. But he did all of that. He did all of that not through the force of his just unusual, creative, and curious personality. Like I'm still surprised that he agreed to come on the show. Not that we're not worthy of coming on. We are at this point a major show inside the real estate marketing space, but he's a busy guy who's wearing a lot of hats. So it was really, and that show was fun. We stayed on talking to him for an hour. Like we were past 1 o'clock. We were like in 1:05, 1:10.
Yeah, what I liked about it is that he knows his subject. He's on message, but he's not totally on message. And what I mean by that, we do get some guests that are extremely slick, but they're literally what I call, and I don't know if Robert would agree with this, on message, as I put. If you think they have one core message they want to get across, and they treat the interview as the purpose of the interview, and it does sometimes make it a bit difficult because there's a little bit of over repetition. Where with Seth, he was there to promote his business, but he was open enough and generous during the interview to attempt to answer the direct questions that we gave him, wasn't he?
He was. Now, that's a perfect lead-in because this guy, we caught him on a day when he was on fire, and he was totally on message. And thank God that he was, because he probably did. I feel like for a new agent, somebody in your first year, there is no question in my mind that in 2021, we had one show with one person that stood out above all others to help the new agent. You want to know what you should do. You want to have a general game plan. You want to have a business plan, an outline, a map, a blueprint. Brad Sugars came on episode number 318. And I think he had, and I don't know, it was on message, but I don't think it was canned. I just think he had like 3 cups of coffee or something. Like I just think he was on it. It didn't sound canned, but it sounded like he's done this for so many businesses so many times that he just knew the information. And it was an amazing, amazing show. I mean, I sat there in my chair and as he was going on for like 20 minutes, like, this is what you need to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And he was doing that with his fingers, just like bang, bang, bang. And I'm like, I have nothing I could possibly add. Holy cow. So
well, it's like any kind of really good sportsman or anything, he's done it so long. So, and obviously he's super bright, but he makes effective communication like that takes a lot of intelligence and a lot of practice. And he really came across really polished, really slick, and gave a load of information. And that takes a lot of experience, training, and ability, doesn't it?
It does. He reminded me, I think that Brad was a little bit more fluid, and even though he's not a real estate agent, I liked that show slightly more than I liked Michael Hollinsworth, but who was 2 years ago, and it made our top 10 list 2 years ago. And I still think that Michael Hollinsworth did one of the, but
Yeah.
when you say, oh, blueprints or canned sales talk or on message, I literally in my mind flash back to that episode with Michael, who's coming onto our podcast in a suit and had every single word that he was gonna say, like, memorized down to, like, literally down to the last letter. Like, and I've seen and heard other shows, they sound exactly like our show. Like, they all sound alike. I have mad respect for people that do incredibly tight, like, canned marketing or sales presentations.
Yeah.
It's hard. You practice it. It's not easy. So I don't have any, like, please don't anybody misread me.
No.
I'm not being disingenuous. These guys are brilliant, but it was this, like, I listened to something that Michael did that sounded like word for word exactly like what he did.
I have myself. I think it's time for our break, Rob, and come back.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, listen, thank you so much for joining us in the new year. We're so happy, grateful, and excited to have you be part of our show, part of the people that listen to us, part of the people that deal with us. So do us a favor, though, if you've liked what you've heard, if you're on Facebook, if you're live right now, give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment. If it's not live, give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment, let us know how we did. What do you want to see us do in 2022? If you're watching us on YouTube, please smash that like button and the notifications button. Help us manipulate the algorithm. And also, if you could leave us a comment, we'd love it. All right, we'll be right back. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to the Mail-Right Show. We're on episode number 321. My amazing co-host John and I are, and this is Robert Newman, by the way. I didn't introduce myself. I'm the founder of InboundREM. We are talking about our favorite episodes for 2021. And many of our guests, as it's turning out, of course, are the same. So I've taken the last one or two. I know that at least one person that I have on my list is on your list too. We just covered Brad Sugar's episode number 318. You do the next one.
Right. It's Neil Shafrier. I'm butchering it. Schaefer. Sorry.
He's on my list too.
He's not part of the real estate industry. He's a social media expert. And a lot of people out there say, yes, I'm a social media expert. Neil is the real McCoy. He's got a large following on his social media. And this guy's on fire because I follow him on Twitter. And we still have regular little exchanges, and he's coming on my other podcast, and I'll be asking him to come back on ours. And he really knows about effective social media strategy, and he knows how to implement it, and he's really a great communicator. And I think you were impressed. I was. He's very knowledgeable on social media. and digital marketing in general.
I think that of all the people that you and I have interviewed, Neil is the closest that we've come to what I would refer to as an actual digital marketing guru. Like he has got it all. And what do I mean by all? Neil wasn't just good at social. Neil knows his shit for SEO. He has a major blog. When you Google his name, you find Neil. I can't even say the same. I'm still outranked by a guy who's from The Guiding Light, a soap opera. And by the way, I'm an SEO guy. For those listening, I haven't put my feet as deep into social, but I've written about it a lot. Some of my blog posts rank. If you're going to do real estate hashtags as an example, you'll find me on the first page of Google. So I always presume that a lot of you know that because I get a lot of traffic to my site. But whatever I get, whatever I've done is nothing in comparison to what Neil has done. Nothing. The guy gets in front of 100, 200,000 people a month every month.
He's a machine, folks. He really, and a lot of people, that famous people in social media, have people doing their social media. This guy answers my Twitters. This guy, it's him that's actually doing, and he's a machine. He the amount of material he's producing, and his knowledge level. And he just, he's trying to build a business, a consultancy business in social media, the most competitive area in social media or in digital marketing in general. And he's not an overnight success. This has taken many years. But this guy's a real force of nature, isn't he?
He really is. Just looking at his numbers, socially, he's got 300,000 or so followers. I've got about 50,000 followers. So Neil is really like the real deal. I focus very little. What Neil does is incredible to me because he actually responds, as you said, in real time. You got to be connected to your devices and do all that crap. And I refuse. I'm not trying to be that. I'm just a content marketer. And so I will answer comments on my blog more quickly, and my YouTube channel more quickly than I will anything else. But he is live, engaged, like talking to people. You want to know how you can do something from zero. This guy is a living, breathing example of it. It really is. I love Neil. I love the example. I'm super excited for you to have him on the show. I mean, and he really surprised both of us. He pissed you off, which is my favorite little thing, is he was late. And he wasn't just a couple minutes late. He was like 5 minutes late. And we're sitting here going, well, we're probably going to have to do the show by himself. And John was getting a little grumpy. He was like, well, that kind of sucks.
Me get grumpy?
and then he showed up and he was like eating or something. He was eating.
Yeah, I didn't think this was going to be a very, but then we got into it and it was obvious this guy really knows what he's talking about.
And yeah, and I don't know that anybody in the entire year made a worse first 3 to 5 minute impression on John than Neil did. And yet, by the time we were 10 minutes into the interview, it was obvious to both of us that we were dealing with somebody that was just a superstar in every category that you can talk about in digital, which is rare. You want to talk about Twitter? He's an expert. You want to talk about YouTube? He's pretty good. You want to talk about SEO? He's like an 8 of a 10. I mean, you don't find somebody who's got all the skills individually. Like I don't, John doesn't,
well,
neither one of us.
You get a lot of people make out they do, but they don't, do they?
Right. So yeah, totally agree with you on Neil. Couldn't agree with you more, obviously. Let's go on to the next one, which is this guy wins prizes for geeking out the hardest in all of our episodes. So if for those of you who remember, we got into episode number. It was right around the same time, which is why I'm bringing his name up. We actually did these interviews with this guy right around the same time we talked to Neil. His name is Isaiah Colton. Okay, Isaiah owns an agency like me, like John. We all have our agencies of different sizes. I think Isaiah is probably the biggest of all three of us, though. He has an actual office with people that come in, and he's got all this shit going on, and he just decided that he was going to do some podcast, right? But we got into talking about hyperlocal. And one of my favorite memories of this entire year is he like rolls up his sleeves and he gets a whiteboard out. And then he's just off to the races talking about hyper local. Like I'm just like, wow, buckle up, Buttercup. Like Jesus, he's going.
He's a very, obviously for understandable reasons, he's an extremely busy guy. So he's extremely focused. I mean, but I think we got him on a roll. We got him on such a roll that he agreed to come back the following week, didn't he? Or the week later. I can't remember if it was the following week, but he agreed because he actually loves all this stuff, doesn't he? It's not only about making money. He actually lives, breathes all this stuff, doesn't he?
He really did, which is another reason why he was really one of my favorite episodes. It's not that he was real estate specific. It's that he really geeked out on this stuff. Like I geek out a bit, and I love like the way that Google works. I'm a little bit more esoteric. I don't like all the nitty, like all the details sometimes drive me crazy. Like how many details you need to be on top of, I let other people do the detail list stuff. I love the science though. The science is fascinating to me. But this guy, wow, he really went to town. Like he really went to town on the Google My Business stuff. And you could just tell like he was in it to win it. And I just, he was so fun.
And I know, just to finish off before we go on to one of mine, is that, he was right. And I know it's something because you're focused on SEO, regional or local, you're very and I totally agree with it as well. Having an understanding of all that is really crucial as an agent if you're going to utilize digital media correctly. So let's go on to one of mine. And sure. She's been on the show a few times. She always a delight to interview. I'm going to try and have her back this year. And that's Dr. Lee Davenport. Always very knowledgeable. Is a doctor, has a PhD. Is a real estate trainer, but also a real techie as well. Loves her apps. Always brings great value when she comes on the show, doesn't she?
She really does. But did we do a show with her in 2021?
I'm pretty sure we did. Yeah, I think we did. Yeah, unless I'm losing the plot. But she could.
All right.
It showed 253. What was
253 wasn't.
No, I've lost it. I think the reason is
253 was 2020.
Right.
We did an interview with her.
I tell you why I've put her on this, because she was supposed to come on the show and she had to cancel at the last minute, unfortunately. I think she got COVID, and I'm going to follow up with her, but she was supposed to come back on the show. But she's still worth mentioning, even I got it wrong, because she came on the show a couple of times before that, and just amazing guest.
Yes, no, totally agree with you. Completely in agreement. Just making a comment about the 2021 thing. But Dr. Lee Davenport is, I mean, if you're going to say who's one of your top 10 all-time favorite people to just consistently talk to on the show, it's going to be her, because she's just a delight. She's like a ray of sunshine. She comes onto the show. She's got me and you laughing and smiling. That's on top of the fact that she's an actual subject matter expert. Like, she's just a delight, and she knows her stuff, which is, wow. It's a double trouble.
Do you think I make people smile when I go on their shows?
Yeah. So
Be
I,
nice. It's the start of the year, for God's sake.
I think you make them laugh.
All right.
All right. Krista Mayshore, since we're talking about powerhouse women who I don't know if she's quite in the same category in terms of making you smile, but she is a delight. Krista Mayshore, I would say that the reason I like Krista and put her on my list because she is very much canned. Her interviews are very focused. So there's a lot of things that you may not appreciate, but as a digital marketer who understands what she's doing and how she's doing it, she's really taken the time to, like, she's creating funnels and systems, and she really gets them dialed in. Now she charges an enormous amount of money for them, and she makes an enormous amount of money from them. But having said that, she is really in tune with making sure that they work. She's constantly spending money, like lots of money of her own money. Like when you get really good at what you do, like I spend more money on SEO courses than anybody listening to this show, by far. I spend more money on white papers and ebooks and funnels and systems than anybody listening. I guarantee it. I love that about Krista because she does the same thing. You always, like when you get to a certain level, like when you're making multiple six figures and you're sitting here, it is so very much worth it to drop hundreds or thousands of dollars in somebody else's education package to see if they came up with one thing that you don't know yet. Because if you can take that and add it, like if you're an educator like Krista is, and you can change a funnel or, and help make every single one of your hundreds of students like a few thousand extra dollars, well, you just made 300 grand by dropping a few thousand. It's a no-brainer at a certain level. So Krista was one of my favorite guests. What do you think, John?
Oh, she knows the stuff, and she's very, very focused. And I mean that in a good way. So a little bit intimidated how focused she is. But I think what you've just said just about says it all, and I am in total agreement. We need to close the podcast and then maybe we delve some more, because I think you got about.
I'm not done with my list, so yeah.
So we delve with a few more of yours, right? So you want to wrap up the podcast part of the show?
I do. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, real estate agents, professionals of all shapes and sizes, thanks for tuning into our first show of January 6th. We really, really appreciate it. John, if somebody wanted to do some research extraordinaire on you, sir, how would they do that?
Well, just go to the Mel-Wright website. It's a great looking website, and book a demo with us, with me or Adam, and we'll show you how Mel-Wright can benefit your business.
And ladies and gentlemen, if you want to learn anything about digital marketing as a residential real estate professional, my blog is probably one of the top resources to do that in the country. So that's InboundREM.com. My name is Robert Newman. I am an SEO and inbound marketing expert. I will always identify myself as a world-class storyteller, but really I get my story heard by being good at SEO. Thanks for tuning in. For those of you who are going to join us on the video part, go to YouTube/Mel-Wright, and we'll see you on the bonus content. Bye. 3, 2, 1. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Mel-Wright Show. We're going to go into bonus content. And John, I'm just going to serve up my remaining 3 of the top 10 so that you know who I've got on my list. So my remaining 3. So I did 10 people, not shows, because some of these people came on many, many times. Like Jimmy Burgess is one on my list. He came on at least 2 or 3 times last year. My other people are Shep Hyken and Ricky Carth. So those are my 3 people that we haven't yet discussed off the top 10. I think that Shep he's somebody that we don't do a lot of interviews with, and I'm a little surprised he came on. He's like a full-on corporate, like book writer, had a real posh sense about him, like using an English or Aussie term for you there. And I liked what he had to say about customer service and customer focused. I felt like he was an enormous subject matter expert. He's definitely not somebody that I started off talking about. We're doing him in the bonus section because I don't really look at what he had to say. Like, if you're watching this video and you're a broker building a bigger organization, Shep is a guy you need to focus on. Like, he is not the digestible content for your average residential real estate agent. He is more like, I want to build a business. I need some people with some sustainable attitudes about customer service to help me with that part of my business. Shep would be your guy for sure. What do you think?
Well, he was on my list as well.
Oh,
Yeah, he was number 5 on my list, but absolutely knows his subject. Absolutely fantastic communicator, on message, polished, in total command of the interview, of his subject matter, but actually also did, and that all the things I've just said really matter. But he also brought knowledge and value to the interview. And he did all that in 30 minutes because he was off, because he had another interview to do. It was pretty impressive. And he did say, and in the year of the virus, of the great resurrection, people have left their jobs left, right, and centre. Of people said they're fed up of rude customers. They rather do something else than put up with it. I think some of the things he said during the interview were really relevant.
I really think that I agree entirely. Because we don't want to go forever, I'm just going to move on because Jimmy Burgess, who did a few different shows with us, and he did one on. So I had produced a piece of content years ago or a long time ago, back almost 18 months ago, when John and I we talked to the CMO of BombBomb, who was also made our top 10 list, but in 2020. And he told us a story that turned out to be about Jimmy Burgess, which was a method, a process, a system that Jimmy employed to sell $9 million in real estate in 90 days. And once you heard it from Jimmy added in a lot of detail that the BombBomb CMO did not have, Stephen Passanelli. So what Jimmy is just, to me, he is like the Zig Ziglar of residential real estate. He's got the Southern accent. He knows his topic at the same level that Zig did when he started speaking on sales. And I just really like Jimmy. I follow Jimmy. I listen to his content. I take ideas from Jimmy to use in my videos and talk to my customers about.
Can I might say something that will surprise you.
Sure.
I actually think he had the most important message of all our interviews during 2021.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that, Robert, is that through that example, he pointed out, I'm not sure if he did it intentionally, he probably did, because he's a sharp cookie. He has this charm, this likable charm, but intellectually and skill level, he's an expert, right?
Right.
But what he pointed out, I'm not sure he meant to point it out, but I think it's the most important interview that we did during 2021, is that example that he pointed out is what a lot of people don't understand about digital marketing when it comes to the real estate industry, is it's not there done effectively to remove that personal connection, which in a lot of the times it is sold to do that. That you don't have to talk to clients, you don't have to engage. We do this texting, or we send these emails, or you're on YouTube and you're here and there, and the lead will just come in, and somehow by magic, the commission check will be in your back pocket. Well, no, what the technology is about is to get that real person in front of you, a real person, so you could prove to that person that you're the right real estate agent to represent them. So then you get your commission check. And I think in a lot of the industry and in lots of the other podcasts I listen to and conversations on YouTube, I think that's lost. And I think that's a problem, because the technology is there to keep you in touch and then show you or give you the ability of that person to get hold of you and identify themselves as somebody that wants your service, real service, so you can convert them into a commission check.
You're right. I didn't remember that message, but now that I've heard you say it out loud, I couldn't agree more. I think there's a lot of really good things that Jimmy has said, and I think he's a world-class trainer. I think he's proven it through. Another thing that I like about certain people in the industry is there's a lot of people that you and I know. There's a lot of people that can talk a big game, lots. Jimmy does more than that. He's running a team. He's not just a content producer. He's actually running a real estate team, and he's growing that team from 700 million to 2 billion in sales. I know how hard that is to do. I've been a sales manager most of my life. Being a sales leader is like being a daddy, a mommy, a teacher, a motivator, your best friend, your worst enemy.
I don't think you've ever been my mummy, though.
I don't.
I think you've been tempted to kick me up the arse a couple of times, but you never.
Thank God I don't have to motivate you, man, because that is hard work. Getting people to do things that theoretically they signed up to do in the first place. You would be surprised how hard that is to do.
Yeah, I can't do it. It's a weakness in me. I get very resentful very quickly. And if somebody's prepared to try help themselves, I'm prepared to bend backward, probably a little bit too much, to try and help them. But when they're not prepared to help themselves and they're expecting me to come and rescue them, my patient level is not very high.
Yeah, me too. But fortunately, one of the things that I learned as an entrepreneur is it's so worth the money to just pay other people to take care of those headaches. And for the most part, I do, and they do. And I've spent the last 5 years putting 99% of what I make back into this company. This year, I might actually be able to take a little bit out. But all the things that I did with this company were really about, like, building my company was really about making sure that as many of these things that take up my emotional energy are taken care of by other people as possible, and trying to find people who aren't as drained by those things as I am. And so I love that focal point on our strengths and not our weaknesses. Like, hey, I'm strong at this, I'm strong at that. Like, I'm strong at getting online and creating video and creating content. I'm strong in that category. I'm not intimidated by it. I love doing it. Feel like I'm helping, all the things, right? Some people hate it.
Yeah. So well, what I think about Jim is intellectually, I would imagine he's a very effective leader, but he also has that easy charm, easy way of communicating. But there's also, and I think he disguises it, but when he showed that demonstration around Bomb and some other insights he gave us over the free show, there's a deep intellectual understanding of the fundamentals of the real estate business.
Yeah.
So he's a multiple talented guy.
And speaking, and
He's sending
foremost,
me, and Jimmy, if you're listening to this, you can send me the check next week, actually, can't you?
Speaking of, this guy is not as diverse as Jimmy is, though he does have a huge following because he sticks with his process, and he really knows his process. And if you want to learn his process, he'll teach you his process, and his process will make you a lot of money if you follow along with it exactly as he does. And that is Ricky Carth. Ricky has kind of turned into a little bit of an EXP evangelist, and that's fine. EXP is a great company. I think that if you're going to be an evangelist for a company, that's a good one to be an evangelist for. So I'm not knocking it, but he's got 3 ways now that he really promotes himself. He does so by telling you how he does his stuff, by doing his stuff so that you can see him, and then promoting EXP and promoting the tools that he uses to do his stuff. So, but Ricky is always one of those guys where I just think he delivers a ton of value. Like I just do. Like he's polished. He's got a little bit of rough edges in terms of some of the ways that he presents himself. But I think that if you wanted to follow somebody who's just going to give you a massive amount of value without really asking for that much in return, Ricky Carruth is the way to go.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. But also, just quickly, I think the other aspect, because he's been on the show a few times and hopefully he'll agree to come back on the show this year. The thing I get is that his actual lead generative model is very, I was going to use the term old fashioned, and it isn't. That's the wrong term. Traditional, I think, would be better. It's basically getting on the phone to previous clients on a regular basis and keep pretty close to them. And when they got people in their sphere, they refer people to him because they like him, right?
Sure.
That's very traditional, what I have classified the Buffini mythology.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a tight circle of 300 people that you regularly keep in contact with, and you try and build some relationship with them. And when they have people in their circle that are looking to buy or sell property, they refer those people to you. And because they've been referred by somebody in their trusted group, it's a much stronger lead than some Zillow lead or some other paid for digital lead, which you have to do a lot more pre-identifying to make sure it's a real lead, because that term lead is the most abused word in the real estate industry, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the most misunderstood, abused single word in the whole industry, because a simple word can mean 100 different things to 100 different people.
Yeah.
But what the other thing that really impresses me, he mixes that with either he gets people that know what they're doing, or he knows himself. It's probably a mixture. On the other parts of his businesses, he's hardcore digital, and he knows how to market himself effectively. He really, really does. And he knows what he's doing. So either he's getting really good advice from somebody, or he's worked this out himself. And if doesn't really matter if it's either of them, because he's very successful.
There's no doubt about that. Ricky is definitely, and that's another thing I like about Ricky a lot, is that he is one of those people where he's walking the talk and he's letting you walk the walk along with him. And it's pretty rare, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening, it is rare that somebody starts to make over a certain amount of money and still wants to get online, publish content, do all this stuff. It's rare. Like Ricky didn't need to do it to start with. He was just driven and then did.
Well, I think he actually likes it all, doesn't he?
Yeah, he seems to like being really busy. That's for sure.
But I think I call it. I think he likes the hunt.
I think you're right. I think it's a great insight. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've run the gambit. We've now covered all of mine and probably most of.
I think I've impressed Robert with my insights, actually, listeners and viewers. I can
You've
tell.
you've really brought out the insight today. You have my wheels turning.
I think that I take that as high praise, listeners and viewers. I've got
Getting
his
these,
wheels turning. There we go.
things
Oh,
grinding it takes something.
there we go. You want to finish the show, Robert, and we'll see our beloved listeners and viewers next week.
Right. You can find John at mail-right.com. You can find me at InboundREM.com. Either one of us are easily reachable through our contact forms should you want to. John and I both do consultations. We both are talking about WordPress websites. My solutions are a little bit more expensive than John's. That's not saying anything one way or the other about one person or the other. But I'm probably a really good person to talk about if you want to talk about inbound marketing or SEO. John is probably a better person to talk to if you want to talk to about Facebook, and certainly where John would be really great for those of you listening. If you're considering building a WordPress website, John has been a WordPress developer, like personally a WordPress developer, for a long time. If I was not at the place where I was hiring and had staff that was qualified, I would be calling John. Like if I
no, I don't build people's WordPress websites anymore, but I've got a good team. I've got a good team, and to say that I'm embedded in the WordPress ecosystem would be a slight understatement, wouldn't it, Rob?
Yes, that's really my point, is that you are deep, because I've watched your other show a lot at this point, and you do a lot of really incredible stuff, which we don't never talk about on this show, which has a lot more to do with the WordPress ecosystem, the people that are in it, what they're building, all this different stuff. So you definitely, like I know real estate, you definitely are deeply enmeshed in the WordPress ecosystem. So for those of you listening, that's my tip to you. If any of you are thinking of do-it-yourself WordPress site and you want some advice, call John, who are a real estate agent. He is the guy that I would call. All right, ladies and gentlemen, have a good one.